Hello, hello. All right. All right, guys, good morning. Thank you for coming. I didn't realize this podium was so tall. I should have worn my high heels or something. So for today, we're going to discuss malware automation. But before we start, I would like to first introduce myself. So currently, I'm the principal malware scientist at RSA. And then I'm also a father of two. So that's actually the most exciting job compared to what I'm currently doing right now. And I also wrote Malware Rootkits and Botnets. If you have a budget for a book this summer or this coming fall, please get a copy. All proceeds of this book go straight to my kids' 529 college fund. So please, help me send them to college. College is very expensive. Before RSA, I was with Dambala for 3 years. I was their resident malware reverser and researcher. And before that, I was with F-Secure. F-Secure hired me to build their Asia R&D, which is based out of Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And before F-Secure, I was with Trend Micro. Trend Micro is where I started my career. They hired me straight out of college. And when they were hiring me, I really didn't know who Trend Micro was, because during that time I was using McAfee. And even though I had an email address way back in '98, they still sent me a telegram asking if I'm interested in coming in for an interview. And every time I tell that story to my kids, they really don't know what a telegram is. I have to explain to them what a telegram is. And you can follow me at Twitter. If you have questions after the presentation, or if you just have any questions in particular about any threats, malware, you can send me a message at Twitter. Sometimes I respond slow if it's a hard question, but if it's a very easy question, I usually respond really fast. And if you want to read some of my blogs in RSA, that's the link, bit.ly tops blog. And about the team. RSA FIRSTWATCH, I'm a member of RSA FIRSTWATCH. It's RSA's elite, highly trained global threat research and intelligence team. But I always say that we're the G.I. Joes of threat research. I grew up in the 80s, so those were the cartoons I was watching, G.I. Joe and Transformers. The Gen 1, not the Transformers today, they're really very crappy. And you can follow us at RSA FIRSTWATCH. All of the team's exploits are posted in RSA FIRSTWATCH Twitter account. And our blogs are in blogs.rsa.com. All right. So today, we're here because we want to understand the story behind the staggering number of malware discovered daily. And hopefully, after this presentation, you would have that understanding. And if you do, please see me and my colleague Eric after the presentation. We'll be giving out free tokens so you guys can get drunk tonight, which is the most important part of the day, of course. So for us to understand that, the first thing we will talk about is the current state of malware, or what's the malware problem looks like today. And then we would also look at the attacker's arsenal, the tools they're using currently to conduct an attack. And we would also go into detail on how to create an army of armored malware. And then I would also discuss why they're doing automation, what are the advantages it's offering to the attackers. And of course, a live demo. I've tested the demo when I woke up this morning. Everything worked. Hopefully there won't be any gremlins today. It won't mess up my demo. But so far, so good. This morning. All right. So the current state of malware, if you see this chart, it's very easy to understand. You would see there the amount of unique malware that are discovered on a yearly basis increases exponentially. And if you can see here, this bar right there, that's updated until June of 2013. And we haven't finished 2013 yet. That's just half of 2013, and it's almost 15 million more than what was discovered in 2012. Now, this only represents malware that were discovered. It doesn't represent malware that are still out there. There's this one professor in a local university in Georgia. He was saying that based on their findings, the number of malware that are discovered, multiply that by 4, and that's the number of malware that are currently undiscovered. So that's how many malware are currently out there. Now, usually every year, if you guys have different security providers, you would get this kind of chart. It's actually designed to scare you guys into buying their solution. I'm not saying it's bad, because this actually represents what's really going on out there. But what usually happens is that they would show you this slide or this chart, and they wouldn't even explain why. Why is it like this? What's giving the attackers the capability to produce this massive amount of malware on a yearly basis? And hopefully this presentation would help in answering that question. So before, when there's a malware outbreak, like a SQL Slammer, I Love You virus, the Melissa worm, usually only one malware is responsible for that. You catch that malware, create a solution for it, deploy that solution, and what happens is that you virtually stop the outbreak. The outbreak stops the moment you deploy that solution. So that's how easy it is. Like, there's an outbreak, get the sample, the next day deploy solution, and then you effectively stop the outbreak. But right now, that's not what is happening. Attackers right now are really smart enough to know that one malware will not do it. So instead of using one single malware when they conduct an attack, they're actually using an army of armored malware. So if you catch one, you only stop that malware, and you don't stop the whole attack campaign. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, in this chart right here, the way they define uniqueness is in terms of hash. So actually, for me, this is just my professional opinion. That's not really a good way to define uniqueness, because I could just get one malware sample and then add an extra byte at the end of the file, take a hash of it, and people would say that's a totally unique malware. But unfortunately, that's how currently the industry defines uniqueness. But here, you will see in my presentation that the way we will define uniqueness when malware is being created is not just in terms of hash, but it's unique when you see it on disk, and it's unique when you see it on memory. They're the same malware, but the way they look on disk and memory are totally different. All right, so what's enabling the attackers to create an army of armored malware? So they have at their disposal DIY kits, armoring tools, packers, encryptors, joiners, binders. They also use AV scanners or other security products as a form of quality assurance, which I will explain later. So let's first discuss the DIY kits. When I was starting my career, this was the first DIY kit I was able to analyze. So this one was created by a 15-year-old kid from Chicago. So he was really young when he created this. So the first time I saw this, I was really impressed. Because before, when you need to create a malware, you need to have assembly language skills. And with this, you really don't need to have any knowledge of assembly or any programming concept. You can create your own malware. That's how easy it is. You just need to know the command lines, and then you'll be able to create your own malware. Now, in the early days, malware is all about, it's like a pissing contest. So when this came out, another group came out with their own DIY kit, which is called the PSMPC. So this one, also the same concept as VCL, Virus Creation Labs. All you need to know is the command lines, and you would be able to create your own malware. Now fast forward 15, 20 years, we get SpyEye, and we get Zeus. Now SpyEye and Zeus, as you can see, they're more geared into cybercrime. They're more geared into committing crime, getting money from unsuspecting users. Unlike the malware creation of before, they're more about the malware writers showing what they can do. So this is the technology, like for SpyEye, the technology sometimes is so sophisticated that whoever is using the tool doesn't really understand it and he gets infected himself. That's why they have an option there if you want to detect whether you're infected by SpyEye or not. And when I was analyzing this, if you really want to know how to remove SpyEye effectively in your system, the answer is in the kits themselves. Because once you understand how they remove it, you could just get that solution and then apply it into your, in your security products, and you would be able to remove all of those infection in your system. So same with Zeus, it's also a financial targeting malware. So it's a rival of SpyEye, but since all of the leak copies came out, most of the malware writers actually combined the functionalities of two of these kits to create a more powerful kit. Now, what's a takeaway in the DIY kits before and the DIY kits today? So VCL and PSMPC, you can create finite number of malware samples. If my memory serves me correct, I think the maximum you could create is like 20. So that's the maximum of combinations you could create with VCL and PSMPC and other old DIY kits. Now the DIY kits today, like SpyEye and Zeus, you can virtually create infinite amount of unique malware samples. So infinite because it uses time as a seed. So as long as time exists, it would create a unique malware sample. Again, when I say unique, it's not uniqueness in terms of hash, but unique. Like when you see one generation from the next on disk, while it's resting on disk, it's totally different. And while it's running in memory, it's, again, also totally different. It's like a metamorphic and polymorphic on steroids. Now, these DIY kits, they also offer some sort of protection. So once you get the sample, it's really hard to reverse it, to analyze it, because it offers some protection already built into their sample. So that protection is designed to slow down reversing, analysis, any form of research you want to conduct on these samples. And it's also designed to actually evade security products. But of course, the attackers know that there are other tools out there that would help them in protecting their malware. That's why they don't rely simply on those that are provided by the DIY kits. They also use standalone armoring tools. Excuse me. So the more popular ones are packers, like this one, UPX packers. We have here the UPX GUI and the free UPX. Actually, UPX, you can just download it for free online. Just Google UPX, then you can download the command line. But in the underground economy, anybody could just get a code of that free available UPX software, copy the modules, whip out a GUI, and then create a new package out of that, and then sell these for like $10 each, $15 each. And there are lots of buyers out there. They just package freely available tools on a very cool GUI, and then they could sell it for like $10. And usually you can create this in like half a day. So another form of a armoring tool, it's also a packer, but this one, it has additional options. This one has compressed resources, compressed icons, crypt executables. The good thing about some of these tools is that if you're a white hat, is that most of these options, they don't work. They're just tick box. So you tick something and then you experiment on it, and really there's no value being added to the malware. It's just blob of code that really doesn't do anything. But of course, people would still buy this for like $10, $15. But there's some options here that work. Some options work, some options don't work. So even the attackers themselves, they're actually fooling each other. As long as they can make a quick buck, they will. And some armoring tools, they're also available in the cloud. So it's like armoring tools as a service. Like this one. When I was doing my research, indetectables.net is free, and it was still accessible. I'm not so sure if it's accessible now. But before, it was free. And then when it became very popular, they started charging access to the website. So you have to have a credit card. So you give them your credit card number, they give you a license, and then you could access their website in perpetuity. Now, actually, since I don't trust whoever owns this website, you've just been victimized in two ways. Number one, you just gave them your credit card number, and they just charge you 15 euros to actually get access to this. And also, whatever you upload here, there's no assurance that they will just discard it. Of course, they can keep it for themselves. So if you upload there something that has intellectual property, they already have it. And in the underground, you can actually sell malware for 1 cent a piece, up to $1, depending on how sophisticated it is. So let's say somebody uploaded a very sophisticated malware here that he created and nobody knows about it. Now they have access to it, and then they can sell it in the underground for like $1. I know it sounds like small change, but later when I show you the demo, how easy it is to create malware, if you can create millions and millions of malware and then sell it for 1 cent each, and then you have a buyer, that's a lot of money with little effort on the part of the attacker. So another popular armoring tool is a file joiner, which is similar to an exe bundler. Now, file joiner and an exe bundler, it works by getting a very popular program and getting your malware creation, and then you morph them together. So during the DOS days, when malware was still called viruses, viruses have built-in infection routine. So if it happens to infect a very popular file, and that very popular file is copied from one PC to the next, using a floppy disk, of course, chances of it being executed is really high. Now, the main idea here is that you package your malware creation with a very popular application or very popular program, and then you spread it around. You post it to free software sites. You use P2P to share it. And the main idea there is that the more popular the program that you attach your malware with, the chances of it being executed is really high. Now, the file joiner and the exe bundler, they're actually the tool version of the infection routine, because you won't see any infection routines today. You'll see it all the time during the 80s and the early 90s, but today, most malware, they really don't bother themselves infecting other files. They're more concerned in spreading across networks, not just within a PC and across different files. And as us researchers use different AV scanners, different security appliances, different security products to determine whether malware is detected or not, attackers also use the same thing for their quality assurance purposes. This one, the multi-AV scan, is one of the more popular tools that you can download freely on the internet. So what it does is that it has the ability to run multiple AV products in one box without them conflicting with each other. And it's a good way to check whether your creation is detected or not. Now, what it does is that it actually downloads all of the engines of the malware, of the AV products, and then it strips that module that actually checks for the presence of other AV products in the system. Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. because sometimes it still conflicts with each other. But the way the tool fixed it is that they removed some of the features, and as a result, they removed one very valuable feature of most AV products, which is the dynamic scanning. So what they're trapped with is the static scanning, which is mostly signature-based. All of the heuristics and other dynamic scanning capabilities have been stripped out. So they understand that. So if the attacker or the group of attackers are highly funded by a state sponsor or any sponsor that has money, sometimes it's just easy for them to just have multiple images of different AV products, and then they just feed their creation to those different AV images. And sometimes they also have access to different security appliances that are worth tens of thousands of dollars that they can check whether their creation can bypass those security solutions. Now let's say you're a script kiddie, you don't have enough money. You can always use online virus scanners like VirusTotal, VirScan, and NoVirusTanks. Now, NoVirusTanks, it became popular with attackers because it has the option there that says, do not distribute the sample. Because as an ethical practice within companies that provide this service, usually when they find something that they deem malicious or that are detected malicious, they forward all of the samples to different AV vendors. But then again, even if you use NoVirusTanks, there's no assurance that they will not forward it to AV vendors, even if you tick the box that says, do not distribute the sample. And sometimes attackers, they really don't care. They really don't care whether their creation is submitted to AV vendors, because sometimes they just need a small amount of time in the PC to actually do what they need to do. Sometimes they just need minutes, sometimes just seconds. It's like a hit and run attack. I'm in, I need to do this, and then I destroy myself. So sometimes they really don't care whether it gets distributed to other AV vendors or not. Plus the reality is, coming from an AV vendor, the amount of malware samples that are received on a daily basis, it's nearing 100,000 samples a day. And nobody can actually process those samples. Even if you have automated systems, it takes a long time. So the way you actually handle all of those samples is that you prioritize them. So samples that are coming from high-paying customers are prioritized first. And usually, like free sources like this, they're prioritized lower. So chances of them being handled is slim to none. Sometimes there are samples that are not handled for months, even years, because they got buried in the queue. And sometimes you would know that you already have the sample after an outbreak happened and people got a copy of the sample. Some AV vendors would realize, hey, we have it already in our collection the past 6 months. We just didn't had any time or resource to actually process it. All right, so we've discussed DIY kits, armoring tools, and AV scanners. Now let's see how the attackers actually use them, or the process of actually combining all of those tools so that they can come up with their own army of armored malware. So it starts with a DIY kit. So the DIY kit would create malware samples. As I said, it can create infinite number of unique malware samples. You get one, and then you subject them into different armoring tools. Right now, since RAM and storage is very cheap, you could use different standalone armoring tools, put them in different order, and it would totally mess up researchers and different security products. But still, and if you would notice, they just came from one malware that's been produced by the DIY kit. Unlike before, during the DOS days, everything has to be optimized. So if you want to add an armor in your creation, sometimes you only need to add one. Because if you add 2 or 3 or more, it slows down the system so bad that it would raise suspicion. But right now, there's no such thing as slowing down the system. Unless, of course, if you use like thousands and thousands of armoring tools, of course, that would slow down the system. So once you've subject all of your creation, or I would say the attacker's creation in the standalone armoring tools, the next thing they do is that they make sure it's not detected by any security products. Now, it depends on the attack that the attacker wants to conduct. There are actually two forms of attack, opportunistic and targeted. So opportunistic is that you just release your malware, and whoever gets infected, then they are your victims. If that is the case, if the attack is opportunistic, usually the main concern is that it's not detected by the major AV security products or any major security appliances or any major IDS appliances. Now, let's say the attack is targeted. So sometimes, if it's even detected by 90% of security products the attackers are testing their creation on, but the one being used by the target entity is belonging to the 10% and it's not detected, then they would still go through with the attack. Now, the next question is, how do they actually determine what the target entity's security product is, or what other security appliances that entity is using? You can actually find out in two ways. You could conduct a very sophisticated hacking attack, or you could just go to different public resources. So one good resource are job sites. So they could just go to job sites, especially if they're hiring like sysads. Usually companies would put there, we need someone who's well-versed or willing to learn Windows Server, can manage central control of the security appliance and all that. Now, even if that posting doesn't exist anymore, they could just use Wayback Machine, and then they could go back in time to determine whether that posting is still there, and then they could get all their information from there. Or if there's an active posting, the attacker can even call the company as an applicant and social engineer them into revealing much more information. Now, let's say the company is much more savvy than that. There's still a hole because some IT personnel or security personnel, they would post questions about their systems if they're having problems in different tech forums. And tech forums, even though they're actually paid for, some attackers would still troll them. And they would gather information from different companies, postings from different companies. Even though they won't use it today, they might use it in the future. So what happens there is that they collect all of those information, especially if the original poster uses his real company email address. Now, let's say the original poster is much more tech savvy. So instead of using, let's say, Christopher.Elisan@RSA, he's using Christopher Elisan at Gmail. But still, he used his real name. If you Google his name and you find out, usually, if that person is very active in social networks or has written a blog somewhere, usually that will reveal which company he's currently working on. So that information would still be there. Now, let's say he will not use his real name. Instead, he would use lonelytechguy@gmail.com. That works. But sometimes you get lazy or you get comfortable with what you're doing. You just copy-paste questions there, even if it's coming from a different poster, and then you realize you just forgot to delete the contact, the name, the contact email, the company signature of the original poster. So that information is still there. This is why in some companies, especially if there are people or a team of people that are actually in charge of very sensitive servers or very sensitive data within the company, when the security team would brief them about practicing good security, they not only brief those group of people, they also brief the family of those people. One example, one use case that happened is that let's say I'm an executive of one company, and then I went out on a business trip, and then my son, he got so excited I was out on a business trip. He posted on his Twitter account, "Hey, party at my place tonight. My dad is away. I have all the house to myself. He's in DerbyCon in Kentucky." Now, if I'm an attacker, I'm monitoring the Twitter accounts of those key people and also the family members of those key people. I could use that information to social engineer the executive. I could probably send them a snail mail with a package that has a USB, and then the snail mail would say, "We really appreciate you coming to DerbyCon. Here's a token of our appreciation. Please accept this USB. Put it in your PC. There's a survey there. Just fill it out." Because people sometimes, they trust snail mail more than email. They would say, "Oh, this is not a scam. It came from the mail." But of course, things coming from the mail are much more dangerous, right? Like anthrax, bombs, and all that. So, or if they're cheap, they don't have that much time, they could just send an email. Same thing. "We really appreciate you coming to DerbyCon, speaking at DerbyCon. Please click the link. We would really love to hear from you." Or, "Please click the link. It shows pictures of your presentation." But then you realize nobody was taking my picture when I was presenting. How come they're saying there's a picture of my presentation? But the main idea there is that all of those information, even those coming from family members, can be used to get information that the attackers can use on their quality assurance so that the success of their attack would really, really be very high. And after that, you have an army of armored malware. Now, if you don't have money to buy a DIY kit malware like Carburp, before it was leaked out, it was worth 40 grand. But then after it was leaked out, it was worth virtually nothing. You can always get an old malware, subject them into different armoring tools, the same thing, go through the same process, and you would come up with an army of armored malware that's considered new. It's considered new because nobody can reverse it quickly, and it's totally undetected again by security products. I actually had a talk about this a year ago. I called it the green malware, made from 100% recycled malware. Now, I have that idea for that talk because in my previous adventures, one client actually approached me and he said, we've just been attacked by a very sophisticated malware. So they gave me the sample. It took me weeks, months to actually remove all of the protection. And then once I did, that malware sample was actually 5 years old. So it was really old already. And then most companies would say it's sophisticated because they got attacked. If they get attacked by anything, they term it as sophisticated. So why do they do this? What are the advantages offered to the attackers? Exponential effect. The more malware you have, the stronger you are in your attack. And updating malware is quite easy, and knock AV out and other security products out. So the exponential effect, as I said, you could create infinite number of malware samples. So you start with a DIY kit. You get one sample, run it in an armoring tool, and most armoring tools also use time and date as a seed. So just based on one sample, it could create infinite amount of unique malware samples. And then you subject it into another armoring tool, and so on and so forth. Now, the main advantage of having malware like this is that you can use it in an attack very effectively, or if you don't want to get your hands dirty, you can sell them in the underground. As I said, 1 cent, as low as 1 cent, and sometimes as high as $1, depending on the functionality of the malware. Now, easy malware update. Once you have lots of malware samples at your disposal, it's very easy to update your malware. So one example is that unique samples per malware deployment technology. So what's a malware deployment technology? A malware deployment technology is the thing used by attackers to have their creation reach a target. It can be a USB stick, like somebody standing in front of your office giving away free USB sticks, and then you were gullible enough to get one. You were so happy, and then you plug it in your network PC, and then you get infected. Another malware deployment technology are drive-by download sites, and the most popular is email. So let's say I have a botnet that has the capability to spam. So if I spam out, if I produce 1,000 spams, instead of having the same sample in each of those spam mails, I would have different malware samples in each of those spam mails. And then if I want to target one company, I would just send the first 500 into that company. Now let's say one security expert in that company was able to get a copy of that email. He said, oh, I caught this. They create a solution for it, or they send it to their security vendor. They create a solution for it, and then they deploy that solution. And then say, oh, don't worry about that spam coming in our mail servers. That's already solved. We already have a solution for that. But then the next day, they still, how come there's some suspicious activity going on in our network? It just so happens that one of the sample actually reached someone who's not really technically savvy in that company. And that person opened the email, followed the instruction in the email to the letter, because the social engineering tactic there was so believable that that person really followed it, executed the file, and now the malware is inside their system. So the reality there is that the one that was caught by the security expert in the company, that sample that was sent to the AV vendors or the security vendors, you wouldn't see that sample anywhere else anymore. That sample will only be seen in that one email. The other 500 that was sent to that company, they're totally different. So they're actually solving just that one sample. They didn't solve the other 499 samples. That's why people would say, I deployed a new solution, but still I got infected. That's why in the industry, when they actually send out hash, that this is the hash of the malware, I really don't use that as much to identify malware, because chances are you would only see it once. You wouldn't even see it anymore again, because it's very easy to create a malware. And also, another way to update your malware is that the malware serving domains can rotate malware in minutes. So what's a malware serving domain? So in a botnet infrastructure, it uses different network resources. So the three major network resources it uses are the CNC. That's the network resource that actually influences the way the malware behaves in the system. You have the domain drop zone. That's where all of the stolen information is dropped. And you have the malware serving domain. That's the one that's hosting the malware components when you update the malware. Now with this one, if you have a malware there that's running, the attackers can actually update that every 24 hours, every hour, or whatever time frame he wants them updated. Now the advantage of that is that if there's an anomaly in the network, an incident responder would come in and he would be able to extract the malware sample, create a solution for it, and deploy it. Chances are that malware will not exist anymore in the system once that solution has been deployed. So the next day, the network admin would say, how come after we deployed the solution, I could still see some data being exfiltrated out of our network based on the logs? That's because the one that was collected by the incident responder, it was already updated by a new component from the malware serving domain. And of course, to knock AV out, malware creation time versus solution cycle time. So in my demo later, you'll see that malware creation is just seconds compared to solution cycle time. So solution cycle time is the time from when the sample was received by the security vendor from the time a solution was deployed. Actually, it's not really a solution that was deployed, only a detection signature was deployed. Because usually malware right now are so embedded in the system that to clean it from the system is virtually impossible. So it's like an alien. It attaches itself into a human host. Remove the alien, you kill the human. So same thing. Sometimes you mess up the operating system so bad that the only thing that you can do is actually restore it from scratch or from backup. And AV evasion is effectively utilized. Now everything is tool-based. Unlike before, when you need to have that expertise in your attack team, you need to have that person in your payroll so that you could have his knowledge in your team. But since there were lots of arrests in the last decade, most writers, they would just say, how about you just use my tool, send me money, I'll give you an access key, and then you could have that functionality with you. So you don't need to actually employ them in the system, in your team. You just need to have the money to buy the tool, so you would have that AV evasion technology available to you. And most systems, they're not really smart enough to determine uh, the difference between the generations to know whether they're just part of Zeus and SpyEye. Most of the systems are not smart enough, so what happens is that they create a 1:1 signature for it. And what happens is that you have gigs and gigs of blacklist that when you deploy, it actually messes up the bandwidth of your network. And understanding malware requires reversing and not just analysis. Now, you know the saying, the schoolhouse is on fire, but then the bank is being robbed. Sometimes when you look at malware, you would get all of the information because it's so obvious, but really there's a hidden agenda still going on. And for you to understand that, reversing is needed. Now, I could stand here and say, you can just reverse this, reverse that, but in reality, reversing takes a long time. In the DOS days, I can reverse malware in hours, even minutes. But the complicated malware today, sometimes it takes me days, weeks, even months. And sometimes I cannot do it alone. I need the help of other researchers to help me reverse that one piece of malware. That's why you would notice a malware came out today, but then after 6 months, you would see papers coming from different security vendors about that malware. That's because that's the amount of time they actually needed to understand that malware. All right, so let's go with the demo. So in this demonstration, I would use Zeus. So usually when you create this, it's user-driven. You create it one sample at a time. But when you automate it, oops, I think there was an error. Yeah, it's see, the gremlins are out actually. Let me just restore this. I know. Plus it's VMware. I love VMware. I'm from EMC. That's why if before a demo, don't update anything, even the smallest thing. It messes everything up. While we're doing this, do you guys have any questions so far? Oh. Before all of those, because there's actually 3 components. You have the encryption engine, you have the key, and then you have the malware code that was actually encrypted. So all of those components are present in the malware sample that's actually running in the system before. Now most of the creation right now is that all of those components are not present anymore. What you get is just the malicious code. Because all of those components, like the keys, what the keys are, and also the what do you call this? Too bad it's not working. So what those keys are is that it's in the tool itself. It's not in the one that's being spread out. Yep, you just get the mal code. You don't have the other 2 components that is really important. That's why in this case, I would always suggest, instead of actually demonstrating, analyzing everything, the samples, the key here is actually analyzing the tool itself, because all of the keys would be in the tool. All right, we have 5 minutes, so I think I'll just wrap this up. I apologize for the, I'll just post a video of it later. And again, if you have questions, you can always follow me at Twitter. Oh, sorry. Unfortunately, when that happened, I really had no insider information when that happened. But from what I understand from the media that I've been reading, is that somebody got really convinced that it's something that's believable. So that person was really able to. But what happened after that, I really have no information about it. Number one, because during that time, I wasn't in the company yet. So all of the information that I have are the ones that are available in the press. Yep.
Regarding some of the like sandbox analysis, which is kind of sexy among researchers, I remember 2010 when you showed that for like Norman and Anubis, some of the more commercial sandbox tools, a lot of the attackers had kind of built in defenses against those. What are they doing now to counter some of the more commercial sandbox analysis tools?
Yeah, for them it's still they're still using the same tactics, but what they do is that they use delay. So they understand that most sandbox technologies have a certain time limit, so they just use delay, and also most of the sandbox technologies still leave traces in the system. So they use that as an indicator whether they're running in a sandbox environment or not necessarily whether they're running on a VM system. All right, I do apologize for the demo. It didn't work, but I'll send out a video and I'll show you guys that how it's producing malware in just snaps. All right, again, thank you for coming. Hope you guys enjoy this and hope you get away with that.